This is Sir Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing, and his build has to be one of the weirdest I've covered in the series, but we'll explore how his build contends in the lands between, facing challenges in both the arena and against Sir Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing. But, like the video and give it to me bite-sized. So for our equipment, we're using the all-knowing set, which gives us good defense leaning towards magic, but our poise is very low, resulting in a build which can't depend on trading hits to survive. I won't hamper on too much about the armor, because what's more interesting is the scepter of the all-knowing, a hammer with the weapon art, knowledge above all. This thing is a hidden beast, because its light attack has a delayed second swing, which is pretty much guaranteed to catch rollers within your range for stagger. In fact, I'd argue this weapon alone is the most reliable thing about the build, and is certainly a must-have, as our spells aren't guaranteed to hit our enemies, but this most likely will. Our weapon art knowledge above all will curse ourselves and our enemies by reducing their magic and holy damage negation by 10%, which might sound useless, but trust me, it's actually pretty handy. As you will see later in this video, Sir Gideon Ofnir has a lot of spells, and we will need to finish the match before we run out of casts. In addition, the Scepter of the All-Knowing has impressive attack speed, which can often damage an enemy quick enough for you to escape. We then have the Carrion Glintblade Staff, which boosts the power of our Glintblade sorceries by 15%, and our Golden Order Seal will boost the power of our Golden Order incantations by 10%. Following this, we then have our magic, and this is where the build starts to get silly. For our spells, we have Comet, Carrion Phalanx, and Rykard's Rancor. And for our incantations, we have Triple Rings of Light, Law of Casuality, and Black Flame Ritual. This is a random assortment of spells and incantations with no rhyme or reason, which does demonstrate his knowledge, but there's no purpose to having this many, as we'll explore later on in our fights. So our stats are insane, and it's crazy that a build like this is even possible. We have 44 Vigor, 16 Mind, and 11 Endurance. Why so low? Because we need to invest the rest of our points into 52 Intelligence for Comet and 42 Faith for Black Flame Ritual, alongside the rest of our spells. This is stupid, because there's no reason for us to be both using Comet and Black Flame Ritual at the same time, which require a high level of investments in two completely different stats. Furthermore, we can't even invest in more Vigor or Mind because of these requirements. And to make matters even worse, our Scepter of the All-Knowing, which is a hammer, requires 18 Dexterity and scales with Dex and Faith. Not sure why a hammer scales with Dex, but it means having to dump points there because why not? This is based on a level 125 Vagabond, with all equipment upgraded one level below the maximum, which will avoid you having to use a rare Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone. So how do we effectively utilize 6 spells and a dexterity scaling hammer with a staff and talisman for casting? Good question, and to be honest I don't know how to properly explain it, but I'll start by giving an overview of the tactics for each spell. Carrion Phalanx creates an array of swords which strikes the enemy who gets close, and it's great for fending off an aggressive enemy without having to attack. Rykard's Rancor is fantastic for damaging an enemy, as the skulls will follow the enemy's path and create a trail of damaging explosions with decent range. Comet deals massive damage, but is slow and difficult to land, even on targets which move even slightly due to terrible tracking. Triple Rings of Light is a beast of an incantation, as you can spam it for massive damage, it's a pain in the ass to dodge, and the rings are large, and they return like a boomerang to the sender. Black Flame Ritual is handy for creating a protective barrier between yourself and the enemy, which can be great for when you need to sip your flask or gather your bearings. Then we have Law of Casuality, which I honestly never use as we don't have the health required to survive 5 hits needed to trigger the explosion. The explosion is also telegraphed, meaning enemies can easily dodge it. But for the strategy I like to start by casting Knowledge Above All, as the range is great and it will help our hits count. Then Carrion Phalanx and Rykard's Rancor to put pressure on the enemy. If they play aggressively, then roll into the path of the Rykard's Rancor, and if they follow you, they will get hit by the trail of explosions for damage, allowing you to punish their aggressiveness. While those follow the enemy, cast Triple Rings of Light to damage the enemy both on the way and on the return, which will likely hit if they are spamming the dodge button, and keep firing for massive damage. Comet is useful for when the enemy is within a casting animation, or if you can cast it quick enough to trade with an attack. As previously stated, Black Flame Ritual is used to put some distance between us, so I can sip a flask and resume the spamming. But don't ignore the Scepter of the All-Knowing, which I often use against aggressive enemies to punish them with strikes that will likely strike them even if they finish rolling, causing them to roll away and allowing you to cast more spells. It also has a fantastic rolling attack which thrusts like a greatsword to quickly wind an enemy, and a jumping attack which strikes quickly. But as for our weaknesses, we have plenty. Our low vigor and average defense means we will feel the pain if we get hit by any weapon, and due to low poise, we can't reliably trade hits unless we gain some distance. We will struggle against enemies who are fast and hyper aggressive, likely using quick step to stagger us before we can cast a spell at all. Also, enemies using their own spells will likely outclass us due to the fact that they are using theirs strategically, whilst we're flexing our knowledge with a buffet of magic. Be very careful of halberds and spears. Their range will poke us out of any casting animation, and it will make it difficult for us to respond. And lastly, be careful of quick casting ranged attacks like Beast Roar or Lightning Bolt, as these will likely hit us before we even finish casting the spell, putting us at a major disadvantage. But while I'm dunking on this build for its inconsistency and randomness, it's actually surprisingly viable in combat. We have an assortment of really annoying spells, which can turn any fight into a bullet hell, and there's enough variety to really confuse the enemy. I've won a few matches with this build despite its lack of focus and obvious drawbacks, often because opponents don't know how to respond to a flurry of spells combined with a hammer to the face. I'll leave you with some uninterrupted battles in the arena and against Sir Gideon Ofnir, but let me know your thoughts on the builds in the comment section below, and of course, subscribe. This is Bite Sized Otaku, and I hope you enjoyed.